So welcome. Thank you everyone for donating to this event. This is the first PechaKucha event on Monhegan. In a moment you're actually going to see the true pronunciation. The Americanized pronunciation is PechaKucha, but people will pronounce it for you in a moment accurately. Welcome to the Monhegan School. I am the teacher here, and I'm also one of the organizers of PechaKucha, along with my husband Dylan, who's running the slides back here. We're going to have 5 presenters tonight. We tried to wrangle some more. Typically, a PechaKucha would have 8 to 10. But Monhegan is an island, and people come and go, and so it was hard to get that many presenters, but maybe after tonight. If anyone in this room is going to be here, okay, then we want to have people sign up for the next round, which probably won't be happening until next spring. But think ahead. And thank you to the presenters that are presenting tonight, Leith McDonald and Lisa Young-Clow and Bruce Kornbluth and Kat Gates. Thank you so much for coming. These are all people that are connected to Monhegan for years and years, but it doesn't have to be. So if you come, this is your first time here and you want to come back next year and present, we'd love to get your number or email or something. Yeah, get in touch with us afterwards. Let's see. There's going to be an intro video in just a moment. Should I do Leith's intro now or after? Okay. So we are going to, so the donations that you guys gave at the door, proceeds are going to go to a new arts initiative at the school that I have started. And so far we've raised a bunch of money to bring professional artists out this winter to do 2-day workshops with the kids in various disciplines. You'll learn a little bit more about that later. So thank you for your contributions, and let's get started.
It's in Monhegan of Hello, Monhegan, and many congratulations to you, Dylan, and all the very nice people who've been helping you pulling off this very first PechaKucha night in Monhegan, or Monhegan. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but we're used to not knowing how to pronounce PechaKucha, so
We'll explain that later.
this is Marcus.
This is Astrid Klein.
And that's Marcus in Tokyo. Now we're ready. We came up with PechaKucha tonight. It's a very nice format of 20 images for 20 seconds each, which does not allow chatty speakers to have the mic for longer than 6 minutes or seconds before the next presenter is on. And that's probably only one of the reasons why PechaKucha tonight got so popular all around the world since it's now in 64 cities.
That's right, and this month we already have 105 events happening around the world. You're wondering why PechaKucha has become so popular? I think one of the reasons is that probably like in your city and certainly in Tokyo, there are very few places where architects and creative people can share their work. Especially if it's your first project, maybe your house for your parents, you don't have enough images for a full-blown lecture, you can't really afford a gallery show, probably not going to get it into a magazine, but the 20 great images you do have, you can show at PechaKucha night. Amongst some great friends, maybe some present PR, you never know, maybe a new client or two. Astrid's going to let you know what PechaKucha means.
It actually means chit-chat in Japanese. And yes, as I said, it's difficult to pronounce and people get quite creative with it around the world. It's quite funny sometimes, and that's okay, we don't mind. But what it definitely does not mean, it's not pressure cooker, it's not Macho featuring, and no, it's not projector night either. It's PechaKucha night.
That's right, of course, at PechaKucha.org, you can find all the latest news. If you're taking pictures tonight, please send them through. We'll put them up on the blog about your first event. If you're videoing your presentations, which we hope you are, with good sound, let us know. We can help you upload those onto the website. We have over 4,600 presentations from cities just like yours on the website. So it's a really great way to show and share the creativity of your city with the rest of the world. So from Tokyo,
Go! PechaKucha!
PechaKucha. See you soon.
Is it? So, the first presenter tonight is going to be Leith McDonald. After completing a BFA in printmaking in 2002, Leith McDonald spent 6 summers and a winter working on Monhegan. He spent the next 5.5 years as a member of the curatorial department at the Farnsworth Art Museum in Rockland, Maine. Combining his love for and knowledge of Monhegan's art history, Leith developed a series of walking art tours that explore Monhegan and its place in American art history. That started in 2010 and continues today. His own artwork has evolved several times since he was first introduced to the island through Caleb Stone's painting class. While living on Monhegan, Leith carved and printed numerous wood blocks by hand, experimented with printing art on clothes, participated in Mostel's salon, and produced short videos with the help of his friends. Years after moving off the island, Monhegan has resurfaced like a great whale in Leith's art-making practice. These assemblage pieces are inspired by years of memories and dreams of a piece I long ago fell in love with, he says. Created from driftwood collected over time, mixed with carved toys I made for my son with my grandfather's tools, I feel like a kid having fun again.
Thank you for that introduction. Ready to go. So I'm here to speak about my new sculptural work, but more about where it comes from and my ideas and process making it. And it really comes, I think, from my family and just having a love of being surrounded by handmade objects and handmade things. I ate food on a table that my father made, and I lived in a house that my parents had made. And my grandfather made things like this. These are lead soldiers. They're not very big. But he cast them by hand, and then he manipulated them, and some of them have guns you can pull out and swords, and he painted them all individually. And he made a lot of them. And when he died, they all became mine. And they've been displayed for years in a loving way, but not the best for them, really. So they really required cleaning, and I set about cleaning and cataloging each one. And it was this really great, fun project for me, just using my hands and just kind of connecting with my grandfather in a way and seeing things that he had done. And speaking of connections, my father and my grandfather were both printmakers. They were commercial printmakers. So when I got to art school, it seemed like a logical procession to me to use printmaking as a vehicle for expression. So this is one of the early prints I made on Monhegan with a spoon. So picture me in my basement studio, just sort of thinking about my father and my grandfather, just surrounded by this creative chaos. I've got the soldiers over there, and I'm cutting up these old Monhegan prints that never sold, and I'm making stop-motion animation videos out of them, and I started playing with the idea of 3D sets and collages, and I had a breakthrough with this piece, which is really a homage to another important father figure in my life, which is John Kordak. This is a model of a piece that he made called On the Headlands, and I wanted to take that piece and see what it would be like if I could just push the scene back and pull the trees forward and really just make it 3D. So I made a 3D model of it and painted it like the painting, and I thought that was pretty great. But then pack everything up and move and have a baby, and life changes. And I also got to know the Shakers at Sabbath Day Lake in Maine, the last living Shaker village. We talk about craftsmanship and just handmade things all around you. It's just really wonderful, made an impact on me. And a year ago now, my wife and son and I went to Denmark, where we stayed on an island for a few weeks. And this island was great. It had these houses, they had thatched roofs and these exposed timbers. And when I got back to the States, I started making toys for my son, these little wood blocks that I had painted to look like these buildings that I had seen, and what village is, safe without castle walls to protect it. So the little boy in me, kind of came out, and I started baking these toys for my son and having a pretty good time of it, but also experimenting with how you can create a 3D illusion on a flat space just with paint. And good. So, parallel project. So I'm making toys for my son, but I'm also taking these soldiers that my grandfather had made, and I'm trying to find a way to, I don't want to make more of them myself, but I wanted to add something to them. So I started making scenery and playing back to this idea of stop-motion videos and using them and to create, like dioramas really, and then actual dioramas started to happen. I made these little tiny houses for these things to inhabit, and I'm having a really great time with this, but it's about this time that I start thinking about, what these things actually represent, and, they are in fact toxic. I mean, they're lead and just war and the glorification of violence. It's not exactly the world I want my kid to live in. So, when his teacher told me that he was interested in puzzles, I made him this 12-piece puzzle out of a wood block. It's Monhegan, and just trying to, pull things back from these other experiences and look out from where I am and what I can see and what it is that I relate to and like. So I started making him little boats. And then the architecture of the blocks that I was making for him was modeled after this too. These are little pieces that look like the houses on Fish Beach, or the fish houses on Fish Beach. And I'm having a pretty good time with this too. Ian's fleet really starts to grow. And as all this is happening, Ian's toys, let's face it, are becoming my toys. Just as my grandfather's tools have become my tools. So I'm down in the shop and I'm working with the old hammer and his square and his push drill. And I feel like I'm actually holding hands with my deceased grandfather, and working sort of through space and time, and start thinking back and, start thinking about things on a stage again, and animation, and creating these pieces in a 3D world, and how that all works, and having a pretty good time with this. And then, my middle name is Calder. My son's middle name is Calder. We're named after the artist Alexander Calder. I love it. So we go see this retrospective of his work last November at the Peabody Essex Museum. Now, Calder is credited with bringing emotion into the art world. He just put things that moved into sculpture, made that okay, made that wonderful. And I said, I want to steal that too. How do I do that? And so I figured it out with these birds. Each one of these birds is suspended on a little plastic wire, so that when you walk across the floor, the vibrations of your footfalls cause the birds to sort of drift as if they're floating on the wind on top of the backside there. And this piece is quite small. It's really only like that big. So I've got this new visual vocabulary, and I've got these block buildings, and I can paint sort of 3D surfaces and make things look more complicated than they actually are. And I've got little boats, and I've got birds, and I've got motion, and I can push shapes back if I want them there, and build them up if I want them using paper mache. And I'm actually getting pretty happy with the way things are going, and people start telling me that, there's some kind of joy that's communicated that I'm putting into this, that they see what's coming out of it. So about a year ago, I got together with John, JP, and said, we should have an art show. There's no reason we're not as good as all these other people. Let's do it. So we decided that we'd make enough work to do it, and we did it. We have a show at the Lupin Gallery, but also in Rockland, Maine now, at the Black Hole Gallery. We just had a little press write-up in the Portland Press Herald, which was nice. And going through my files, this is probably the earliest wood collage piece I ever found. It's part of the seagull floor that Lucas threw out when he was putting a toilet in. And I turned it into a moon, and I'm proud to say it still hangs in the Trailing You, where I made it. Next up this evening, we have Kat Bates. Kat is a jewelry designer based in Portland, Maine. He worked with photographer Gabriella Sturcio, sorry if I said that wrong, to create this presentation, which is wonderful, on the conceptualization and development of a recent design. Give it up for Kat Bates.
Hi, my name is Kat Bates, and I make my living designing and producing jewelry. And tonight, I want to talk to you about the process of designing a new piece, conceptualizing it, and the story behind this piece's story. So jumping back in time, when I was about 12 years old, I was spending my summers out here on Monhegan Island. And I had a job rowing people from Swim Beach over to Banana. I charged $5 a trip. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of people. I have a memory of one specific family that I rode across. A mother and father and young child. And when we got to the slip over on Banana, I lost an oarlock over the side of the boat, which was a disastrous mistake. For all intents and purposes, we were stranded. But the mistake turned into an adventure. We worked together, and we ended up having an experience that was more exciting and more meaningful because of it. So jumping forward, I run this business, I design jewelry, and I wanted to make a piece based on the form of an oarlock. I thought that would make a really cool cuff bracelet. And I've been doing some drawing, but I know from experience that it's easier for me to sell my work if I have interesting things to say about it, which is important, because as I said, this is how I make my living. I wanted something more to say about this piece than just it's inspired by an oarlock, this utilitarian object called such and such. And so I did some writing, and I very quickly dredged up the memory of losing the oarlock over the side of the skiff. Now, many products have some sort of story that goes along with them. This is basically what marketing is. Who made it, how they made it, what they were inspired by. When we purchase things based on our emotional responses to them, we're getting not just a physical object, but an association with those things that we think make it cool. This is how we develop emotional connections to the things in our lives, or one of the ways. The same way that we have emotional connections with things that are given to us as gifts, things that we inherit from loved ones when they pass away. But I think in terms of product, it's important to remember that in a physical sense, this story doesn't make the thing actually work better. A handmade cup isn't necessarily going to hold water better than one that was made in the factory. So this memory of dropping the lock into the ocean was interesting to me because it was a memory of a priceless occurrence. The family paid me to row them across the harbor, but my mistake and the adventure that we ended up having was something unique and unrepeatable. I could not have sold them that. They could not have purchased that. To use this memory as part of a piece was like saying, or use it as part of the story, would be saying, buy this thing, which is about something that cannot be bought or sold. And that was a really exciting contradiction to me. It subverted that concept of a story selling a product. But it's a very personal story. It's about me, and it's about my childhood. And sharing it, it felt raw, it felt very exposed. And on top of that, it's a story that takes place here on Monhegan. And this is a place that doesn't just mean a lot to me, it means a lot to a whole lot of people. And so I was having contradictory feelings at this point in the project. There was fear about discussing something so intimate to myself. Glee at the thought of subverting that marketing process by using the memory of something priceless as part of a product. And a sense of futility, like how do I do this in a way that is actually meaningful? I want to incorporate this, but I don't want the story to just become a selling point to this bracelet that I'm designing. So I contacted my friend Douglas W. Milliken, who is an author. He also grew up here in Maine, and a lot of his work deals with situations of tragedy, futility, ignorance, and sorrow. And there's a beauty to his work in its authenticity, but a nihilism and a darkness as well. And that's what brought me to it for this project. And so we sat and we talked. I described the memory in great, great detail to him and discussed my ideas and my feelings about marketing, about authenticity, vulnerability. And we entered into a collaboration together. I continued to design the cuff. Doug worked on writing. And there was back and forth. We gave each other feedback. We gave each other criticism. It was very much a collaboration. And eventually, we met up, and I had designed this cup that was based on the form of an oarlock. And Doug had written a short story based on this memory and my feelings around it. We decided to print the story onto a bandana and to sell the two together as a set. I did the graphic design and developed the packaging concept. Doug's friend, Jenna Crowder, did the printing. And Lillian Harris, who many of you know, did the sewing and the cutting. And now this thing is a product. It's something that people can buy. And that memory is very much a part of it. And I still feel a little bit of discomfort in association with this piece, because it is about something so personal in such a specific way. But I like that it's toying with marketing. And the collaboration itself was really a great pleasure to work on. I don't know if using my memory is exploiting it, or playing with it, or sharing it with generosity. But those unanswered questions, those unresolved feelings, and the path that I had the opportunity to follow while developing this project, in the end, are the story that the piece as a whole, the set as a whole, is really all about. Thank you so much. So next up, we have Bruce Kornbluth. Bruce lives on Monhegan 6 months a year and in Portland, Maine the rest of the time. He travels a lot during his time off Monhegan. He was a potter during most of his adult life, but has also always painted. In the last 10 years, painting has become his main focus. He is going to explain how what he sees and what he paints intersect. Bruce Kornbluth.
This first image is a car park in Buenos Aires, and what appealed to me about it was the pipes almost look like a modern drawing, and the sky is so dramatic behind it, and you get this great bit of naturalism of the tree. It's like as good an abstract painting as anyone could ever do, and it was just sitting there on the street in Buenos Aires. This is a painting I did. I love industrial images, and I love factories, and I love smokestacks. I'm incapable of painting a smokestack without something coming out of it. I just can't. I love the old Industrial Revolution smokestacks you see all over New England. This is probably where this came from, but it's an image that always comes up. This is a rock in the desert in Joshua Tree, California, and if you can imagine this surrounded by water, it's not a far cry from Monhegan. I like the way the rocks look like they were almost put there on purpose. And I guess the desert really is the ocean, except it's dry. Something I really appreciate. This is a painting called Inca Rock. It was not inspired by the Joshua Tree rock, but a rock on the Blackbed Trail. If you don't know what an Inca wall is, I suggest you Google it. It will explain what this painting's about. But Inca walls are one of the most marvelous things that have ever been created. It's an image I've kind of copied many times. This is a fruit cellar in Buenos Aires, and what appeals to me about it is it's almost like pop art. You have these great segmented, bright colors with different textures, and it's the kind of thing you see all over the world, but it just never ceases to bring me joy. It looks like a pop art piece. This painting, it's the same kind of idea. I segmented landscape, weather, ocean, and I kind of always thought of this painting as a poster for northern New England. The banners, I don't know what they mean, but the trees and the ocean and the sky are pretty obvious. This is a big piece of wall art in Buenos Aires, and what really appealed to me about it was the serendipity of the wheelbarrow full of garbage. It's such an amazing image to begin with, and then you get this crazy juxtaposition of garbage, and it's completely monotonal except for the one juice box, which is a shot of color, which is something I really love, as seen in the next image, which is an abstract painting with some recognizable trees and things, but I love to use hot colors to draw the eye in. I think a painting on a wall should make you want to go over and look at it, and if it's all monotonal and gray and murky, you're not going to want to look at it. You probably all recognize this. It's a piece of the D.T. Sheridan. I've always felt a kinship with the wreck. I was born in 1947. The wreck happened in 1948. It's a color I love. It's just an amazing aspect of Monhegan that everyone who's ever been here will instantly recognize. This is a painting that uses that color. It's a painting that I had no idea where it was going when I started, and I think it's really successful. It's sort of about tide pools and about the edge of the shore where the ocean hits the rocks. And I really don't know where it came from, but I worked on it, and I worked on it, and I was ready to give up, and it worked. This is another image in Buenos Aires, an upscale neighborhood. It really is dramatic. I didn't take this picture, Doug Boynton did. But the color of the car, the color of the dumpster, and the monotonal background with this fabulous tree that's like an inverted peace sign. Another photo that just could be a great painting. This is a winter painting I did in Portland. The trees are all bare of leaves, and they're all monotonal black and white. Once again, the hot colors in the middle. You get some earth tones on the bottom. You got your sky tones up top, and it's kind of what I feel like the winter is like when the sun's setting and there's not much to see. This is the washerwoman, which many of you will recognize. When I was looking at the surf one day, I realized that the ocean is pretty much blue, except when it hits something, and then it becomes white. I mean, that is true watercolor, and that's what I work with, watercolor. It would be uninteresting if it didn't change color, if it was just blue. A surf painting, very stylized. You got your kind of almost Japanese, heavy, active surf down below, your solid, very bright rocks in the middle, and these super stylized trees that almost look like a Tim Burton movie kind of image on the top. This is why we all come here, the dynamic weather we have, which gives us these just surreal skies, which people have painted for years, and I think people who've never been here look at them and think, well, they've kind of gone a little bit overboard, but it's really what it looks like. It's pretty amazing. A tree. This is a painting about, also painted in Portland, but very inspired by Monhegan, where you have the same segmented kind of landscape with the ocean on the bottom and clouds and ocean in the middle and trees and sunsets, and then you're moving into sky. These paintings, I never know where they come from. This is the tree in front of my house, which is another Tim Burton aspect of Monhegan. This tree has been kind of stylized by nature, and it's full of witches' brooms. It has the biggest burl I've ever seen on it, and it's a tree that I paint over and over again. There is that tree in the corner. This is the path. This is what I see when I look out the window at the desk where I sit when I do most of my work on Monhegan. The great thing about this path is it does what Frederick Olmsted said paths are supposed to do. It disappears into nothing. You don't know where it's going, so it creates a mystery. These are electric boxes in Buenos Aires. Just a dramatic use of color. I don't know if the person just was goofing around, if they're color-coded for a reason, but it certainly attracted my eye. And it's something that really, I like the way it looked, and it's as good as any kind of color field painting I've ever seen. And this is a painting I did this summer earlier. The rocks kind of remind me of the electric boxes. It's a northwest day on Monhegan, a big breeze, white caps, and just the kind of day we all love, and you can really feel the wind, I think, kind of blowing out of the northwest and keeping the air clear and everything nice. Thank you. Over 20 books for children and young adults. She's a tenured professor at a university in southern New Jersey where she teaches creative writing and stuff. Her home is in Portland, Maine. She's been coming to Monhegan since she was 3 months old. Lisa.
Thanks, Kat. This story starts with me. This was me when I was about 2 years old in Norway, and I was always a very melancholic child. Luckily, my parents didn't care. My mother was an artist, and my father was an animal behaviorist who studied lemmings, and they're very melancholic creatures. So they kind of let me do whatever they wanted. I actually wrote this little story. I love kindergarten because we got to write a little story every single day, and I always wrote about wanting to be grown up and being a writer. And this was my fantasy when I was about 5 years old. Now being a famous writer and writing another one. Picture me when I'm grown up writing a book. These are some of the books that I wrote when I was little. The little girl is a tiny one in the middle. You can't see the pictures inside, but they're all illustrated. I wrote that before I could actually handwrite, and my dad wrote the words down. I wouldn't let him change anything. He wanted to edit it, and I said, no, you're not my editor, it's my book. Now I realize that editors are useful. This is stuff that my mom used to make me do, like, collage and cut out paper. I worked a lot with construction paper. I like this image. I don't know, 5, 4, whatever I did this. But I love that she's holding 2 little people. And note that this girl's a little girl with blonde hair and a red dress, because she actually becomes a very significant character for me later. I was influenced by a lot of things. This was a little village that we got when I was living in Norway. Every week or so, my mother would come home with another little character. I loved this. I would just sit and play with this. I still sit and play with this sometimes in my house. I think a lot of my stories have come from this. I didn't coordinate with Leith, but this is Alexander Calder, who was also a big influence of mine, particularly his circus. When I was a kid, my mother would take me to the Whitney, and Calder's circus was there in the lobby. I just stayed in the lobby and watched it. I love this clown. His nose is a balloon. It blows up, and it all did that. And I went home and I did my own circus with thumbprints. And my brother and I did these. We kind of collaborated. He probably did the fireman and the strongman and the fat lady. I did the juggler and the trapeze artist. But we used our thumbprints, made little circuses and other various things, like little rider. These are a collection of my books, because I'm a grown-up. And notice some of these titles, because I'm going to now talk about various ones of these. Alicia Has a Bad Day, that was my first book that became a real published book. Some people think she looks like me, and it's autobiographical, but she's not really. Then a couple of my novels, and this was how Alicia started. When I was about 20-something, after college, I didn't know what to do with my life. I was, very sad and lonely and miserable. So I wrote all these books about this girl named Alicia. And actually, her name came from a girl that I met while writing the Laura B. out here. I didn't know what this girl was going to be named, and this little girl sat on my lap. Her name was Alicia. So Alicia Has a Bad Day was my first book. It starts with her being generally happy, and she has a dog. Most of my books, someone has a dog. But today, she's so miserable, she doesn't want to get out of bed. Neptune doesn't even lick my face like he usually does. It has the word lugubrious in it, a big black page. That's her favorite visible word, which is dark and dreary. When I work on my books, I always do a storyboard, where I do every single page is tiny little thumbnail prints. So this is all of Alicia Has a Bad Day, the 3rd version. And you can see that big black page, that's where she's feeling the most lugubrious, in the middle there. And all these bad things happen to her. She eats toast, and she mopes, and she can't get out of bed. That's Alicia. This is another book. I did a concept book called 1, 2, 3, Yippee, which I did when I was living in Boston, in grad school, and I was dreaming of a home. I just could not stop thinking about a home, and all I wrote was home, home, home. And I did this book called 1, 2, 3, Yippee, which is about a little house that's all alone, and all these things come in one by one. Years later, years after that book was published, I bought a little yellow home in Portland, Maine, which I love, next to Monhegan. This is my little yellow home, which actually was blue when I bought it with asbestos siding, and my amazing brother has, over the years, very slowly done work for it, including redoing the living room. This is my living room with a lot of books, picture books. I still read picture books. I read grown-up books. My dog Rico from Puerto Rico. Some of my clown painting is my mother's. A lot of little toys. Some of Charlie Martin's work. Ed, my husband, did the little paper sculptures made out of money for some illustration project. Tintin was a big one. This is from my book, My Friend and I, and most of my books have a dark black page, always somewhere towards the end before things get better. My friend and I are friends. One of them finds a toy, they fight, they yell, they pull the ears off suddenly, and the toy's broken, but it ends happy because it is a picture book. This is from Mrs. Molly, also the same 2 friends, and this, I was getting a little annoyed with how sort of frightened Simon was, so I made him kind of search for his friend Molly, and this is really a search, kind of a hide-and-seek book, where they're playing hide-and-seek, he teases her for being too easy to find, and she comes in a disguise. This I call my troll love story. I got tired of drawing people, so I just made big noses and big feet, and they're trolls, and they can live in their own little houses on the opposite sides of the hill. And they're very lonely, and one day, Camille and Francie walk around the hill to try to find company, but they can't. Eventually, they go up the top of the hill, and they find each other, and they fall in love. This is my little dog, Happy, who's 15. This was taken about 15 years ago when I found her in Puerto Rico. You can see we both aged a little bit. You've seen Happy, she's all white now, but she's here. And for many years I wanted to write a book about Happy, and it took about 10 years to kind of finally do a book called Little Dog, which is about my dog Happy. These are the final art for it. It's all hanging on my studio wall. It takes place in Puerto Rico, although it doesn't say Puerto Rico, but you can kind of see some Puerto Rican influences there. And it's about a lonely dog who finds a lonely artist, and they fall in love. This is my novel, which I actually have figured out, one of my novels. This is my most recent novel, Nothing But Blue, which is also about a girl who loses her memory, and she walks 500 miles from upstate New York to the coast of Maine. She finds a stray magical dog that kind of helps her, protects her along the way. But when I work on my novels, I do the same way I do with my storybooks. That's my life. Dylan and Mandy for organizing this. Mandy is our next and last presenter. Mandy has a BA in Fine Arts with a concentration in sculpture from the University of Southern Maine. She studied sculpture at Montserrat College of Art and the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, England. She has spent the past 10 years working in education, mostly special ed, working primarily with children with autism. She is a certified art teacher and is the new teacher at Monhegan School. She has had the opportunity to travel around the United States and Australia, playing drums in the band Tiger Saw, and has started a new arts program for the Monhegan School called the Monhegan School Youth Arts Initiative, bringing professional artists in a variety of disciplines to the Monhegan School throughout the school year. Thank you.
Hi. So yeah, I started in art school at Montserrat College of Art. Straight out of high school, and I wasn't sure, this is the first few slides are of my work. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that I loved to make things. And so I really threw myself into it. I was taking 6 classes a semester and working full-time. I basically had no fun at all. But it was an incredibly productive time for me for those first 2 years. And then I kind of had a crisis of conscience where I felt like I was too in my own head and not connecting with people outside. And so I ended up leaving art school and traveling around for a while and trying to find myself. And then I came back to USM and decided that I was living kind of a transient life at that point. And so I decided that I needed to shift gears from like stone carving or clay, things that are heavy to move and large objects. And so I decided to start working on probably my first passion in sculpture, which was puppetry. So I started to do soft sculptures and making plush dolls and puppets. So this is one of the puppets I made. You can see the dog behind. That was made up in the cupola of the Island Inn as part of the Tiger Saw family of puppet players. And so that's what I ended up doing my senior thesis on, was my puppet work. And again, I feel like a lot of us have talked about art and, trying to bring joy and fun back into it. And so puppetry and fiber arts is definitely the way that I do that. And at this time, I decided I wanted to not just create for myself, but engage with people outside and make art with other people. And so I decided to go to school to be an art teacher. And so this is one of my students when I was doing my student teaching. Kandinsky is a big influence on me. He's kind of the godfather of non-objective painting. And so I did work with high school students and middle school students on art and music and how music so inspired Kandinsky. And so I worked with these middle schoolers who I ended up falling in love with and staying longer in middle school than I ever anticipated. This is a triptych that one of my 7th graders did based on the art of music unit I did. And it was in a jury show where he won a prize. And so he painted this based on his feelings. You know, it's not an objective piece based on his feelings of 3 different songs from the same artist. Puppetry, obviously, I still love to do. I worked in Portland Public Schools, which has incredible diversity. This was at Riverton School, which has 50% English language learners. And a lot of the kids, being able to create something without having language to create it is such an amazing tool to express yourself. This was from a refugee student who had a really hard time in school, and she had a lot of emotional issues. And this was in the trash. She couldn't finish it because this looked so different than what the other kids were doing. So I pulled it out of the trash and reassembled it, and then showed it as an example, and she was so proud of herself. This was a student that was blind, and I wasn't expecting that in my class. And so I had to think on my feet, and he couldn't he couldn't sew the hand puppet that I was trying to teach, and so I got some modeling clay, and he was able to feel it and mold it and create this piece on his own. It was an amazing moment for me. This is just to show, this is 1st grade, and the amazing creativity of young people inspires me. It continues to inspire me, which has kept me in education. Another facet of my life is that I am a musician, and I do play the drums, and I've had the opportunity to travel around playing the drums in Tiger Saw and a couple of other bands backing them up. But one of the things that I found was hard for me while doing that, Australia, New Zealand, around the United States, is you make connections with people, but it's so fleeting. So I really felt like I needed to work on interacting with people and engaging with people and making art with people and have it be really meaningful and more sustainable. And so traveling and going to all of these amazing places on tour was so much fun and gave me so many opportunities. And that's my husband, Dylan. But I know that I'm not made for being a rock star and touring around the world and that kind of lifestyle. So coming back to Monhegan and being able to be in this small community where the connections are real and intense, and I get to work with these kids and be a part of their lives, and not just for 45 minutes a week, but I'm part of their community, they're part of my community, is such an amazing thing for me. What I do want to be able to do is take the life that I've had of meeting all these amazing people like Nicole Beckwith, who is a playwright and an actor and a screenwriter. She just had a movie in Sundance. To bring these people that I've had the opportunity to meet in my travels in my life and bring them out here to share their talents with the kids. So Nicole is going to come and do an acting workshop with the kids out here this winter. Jason Anderson, who's in an MFA program as a writer, he does workshops with adults for songwriting. He's going to come out and do a workshop with the kids. Mark McElroy, who is a sound engineer and a multi-instrumentalist and has perfect pitch and amazing guy, is going to come and work with the kids. So I'm so inspired by all the creative people in my life, but I'm equally inspired by the kids that I get to work with and the community I get to be in. And so that is my story. So much. Dylan and I were afraid that we were going to have 8 people here. So I'm so glad that you all came out. And this is such a special place, Monhegan, as you all know. And so, I feel like I've been inspired once again. I feel like I'm inspired all the time out here, but to see your stories told has been so amazing for me. So we are going to have more of these events. And so if you have a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. So this is a fundraiser to help bring these artists out to pay for their travel expenses to get out here. Jess Stevens back there and Mary, who are on our school board, are going to be available to collect donations if anyone wants to contribute more, or if you want to find out more information. PechaKucha, as you heard, means chit-chat. So unless you have someplace else to be, then you can stick around and ask questions and make connections. And again, thank you for coming.